We have a question right back here.
Hello. My question is that we're really not in Kansas anymore, and I'm Irene Smalls, a children's author. I have an exhibit at the Copley Library dealing with literacy and exercise. And what's going to happen in terms of the shifting demographics in the U.S. and worldwide, and also in terms of workforce development? Where are your future employees and customers going to come from, and how are you preparing for that?
Yes.
I could maybe get
Scott.
started. This is actually a question we think about a lot at Zipcar. I'll give you a couple data points. About half of the world's population lives in cities today, and there's all sorts of studies from the UN and the World Bank that say that number is going to go to about 75% in the next 20 years. So, and that's the developed economies, more people are staying in cities or moving back into cities. And the developing economies, China, India, et cetera, are all moving into cities. The first thing major economies do when they develop is the population tends to move into the centers of work and education, and that's what's happening in those developed economies. So as we grow globally as a company, we're looking for educated workers in developing economies too. We're going to have to go through that same process. And the transition we've gone through from a startup to a high-growth company now, not a mature company, but a high-growth company, is thinking about retention of key employees. The churn of employees is one of the most expensive things that can happen in a business. We spend so much money in the first year or 2 years of any employment at any level in the company because they just aren't ready to contribute at the highest level until they're really in their job for quite a while. So in our mind, the best thing we can do is retain our best employees, retain all employees, but really focus on those best employees that we're going to focus on for the long term and help them get their education, train them, show them a career path. And I think that stands the test of time in any economy, in this country or in a developed economy. I think that's a really important consideration.
You know, Mike, what you said earlier impressed me when you said that when you saw the downturn in sales, you had just a couple of layoffs, and you chose to keep your employees. Was there a conversation of deeper cuts, and what did that conversation go like?
Well, no, not really, because we were, as I've said for years, and we were in a fortuitous position really because of Napster, that we kind of said, we have a strong ship, we're loaded with gold, let's go find some new territory to capture. Well, all of a sudden, the P&L isn't looking so good, but there's still a lot of gold in the hold of the ship, and the cannons know how to work. So that's a different situation in a lot of companies. We are extraordinarily well self-financed, and we know, having gone through the 91, 92 real estate thing, I mean, we had Bay Banks cut off like a $100,000 line of credit that was backing a $1.5 million Warner Brothers line of credit, like it's a canary in the coal mine type line. And from that day forward, we're just like, we're not going to rely on this stuff. I mean, there's a couple of people that worked in our building in Harvard Square. The businesses were put under just on equipment financing. Once banks just say we're going to march left instead of right or whatever. I mean, you can see it going on in the economy right now. But I think that's the reason. I saw it as 6 months, 9 months out. Either everybody's broke, and there was some fear of that, or there's just going to be massive opportunity. So the last thing you want to do is let people go that can take advantage of that opportunity. So it was, we can take a big hit as owner-operators. We don't have to please anybody. We're really working to have a great job to go to, my partner and I. And we've never been kind of money-oriented. It's just if you're competitive and work hard at being really good, money just tends to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a goal. Our company has no budgets. I mean, I would say that we're 78 million. We have no budgets. I've never been in a budget meeting in my life. I mean, our buyers have no open to buys. We built out Norwood Family Hall. There was no budget for build out. There's no such thing as a budget at Newbury Comics. So it's a very free-form company. There's no advanced degrees in the company. I don't have a single MBA in the building. It's just a unique, creative environment. So we just try to give kids tools that are really creative to try things. And to the point on innovation, if my whole adage is ready, fire, aim, reload. The quickest thing is your reload speed. You got to be willing to pump out 50, in our world, $50,000 to maybe $250,000 on just a single product idea. And the problem with most corporate structures they are so control focused. There's so much fight over turf and who gets to decide that it just impedes any horizontal thinking. Some of these companies with matrix structures, and in reality, it's kind of like who's in charge, whose budget is it, who gets credit, who takes the hit. Since we don't really track stuff that carefully, it's not a big concern. We kind of look at P&Ls about 10 days after the fact and go, well, this is doing well, like used vinyl, let's try to sell more or whatever. But I mean, it really is very much a free-form company, so you don't want to, once you let filthy lucre become the main driver, then you're going to have a value system that says that's all that matters.
Okay, you say you don't track it so closely, but you knew the sales figures in that 4-hour sale within hours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Oh,
I made my case. Please.
I just want to add, if I can, we have an open board seat at the Zipcar board, and I'm wondering if because I love the no budget idea. You need to talk to my board for me, please.
All right.
We're making connections already. Yes, we have a question right out here. Yes, sir. Yes. It's hard to see right in the lights. Go ahead.
Jay Shapiro. A question to, I guess, all four of you is, it's a little old school sales and marketing, promotional, branding. When the salespeople try to approach someone like yourself or someone within your organization with very proactive, creative concepts and ideas to the right people, you get no feedback, you get no response. When do you throw in the towel after 4 or 5 tries? But to put it back into your plate, you guys are sales oriented too, and your people going out on the road trying to create ideas, concepts, sales. How do you teach them to continue to go on, or obstacles they reach to try to get in the door to grow sales?
That's a great question. How do you keep on going? How do you keep moving forward if you think you have a good idea that you're trying to sell?
I think most messaging is exceptionally poor, and everybody's into all these. People don't leave proper phone messages. The best way to communicate is to FedEx something, because that will end up on somebody's desk. And none of this like media people. They're like, and your investment. There's never an expense in media. It's always an investment, right? Your investment, $50,000. Your payoff, $4.8 million or whatever. But just the notion of kind of like the elevator speech thing. If you can't describe in 2 minutes why I should spend a half hour with you, then it's just a rotten idea. Like a good idea is like, let's get used CDs from Target stores and sell them on Amazon for 300% markup. Okay. That's an idea. Well, you go, can it work or not? I don't know. It's working for us. But that's an idea. Most ideas are very incremental. They're not, that's one of my issues with budgeting. It's like, well, if we can make 3% more here and cut 3% here, it's like, well, how do you make 600% more? And that's what good ideas are. We call all the other ideas getting rich slowly, and we like to get rich quickly. So it is all about the idea. And as Jim said, you got to have a great idea. So a pitch person had better be able to delineate in one page what that idea is, put that in a FedEx package with support materials behind it, and it'll be on my chair in the morning. But most people don't want to operate that way. They call, I'm a customer of yours. I don't want to hear about any of that.
Okay, so you know how to get hold of Mike now. Okay. David.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very familiar with this particular problem just because of where I work in the innovation space. And selling an idea is just like selling anything. And when you get pushback on an idea, it's just like a sales process. You're looking, actually, a good salesperson looks for the objection. Because once you have the objection, then you can tailor the sales process to overcome the objection. It's not till you know what the objections are, till you can properly evolve the idea. So when I'm selling an idea in an organization, I'm looking for tell me what's wrong with it. But there's actually 2 things I ask. Tell me what's wrong with the idea and tell me what's right with the idea. And then in the next iteration, what I do is I say, okay, how do I keep the things that are positive and get rid of the things that are negative? And I just keep going back.
I think there's another piece to jump in that I think most people aren't addressing pain enough. It's not about these little objections about where is there deep pain and how does your idea solve pain. Like pain is how do I buy a CD for $5 instead of $15? Or it's how do I get a car to go from point A to point B, for less than a $163 rental. And that goes back to the idea. Like if the idea isn't solving a real pain point, then nobody cares about it. So I think a lot of salespeople, unfortunately, have a really low caliber ammunition in their sales bag, and maybe they need to find a better idea to sell. And
Jim, did you want to add something? Okay, you're all.
I very much agree with Mike. When I was
You
selling
must be
Sam
pitched all the
Adams,
time.
I called on a lot of bars, and to Mike's point, you need something in one sentence. And I would tell people, I got a great beer that costs $5 a case more than your regular beers, and you sell it for $1 a bottle more. Are you interested? And there's 24 bottles in a case, so I hope you can do the math.
Easy, yes.
I can add one thing. When you're starting a company or you're trying to raise money for a company, raising money is a sales process, right? It really is. You're trying to sell your idea and take some money in for the idea to go invest in it. And I spent we did angel money for a while, and then I spent some time going out to the venture capital community, primarily always here in Boston. And the venture capital community, this is a few years ago now, it was in 2004 and 2005, in Boston at least, they weren't ready for a Zipcar. They just weren't. They were still very much looking at technology and enterprise software, and we're a business model. We're just like your business in that, we're an idea, we're a concept company, and we're an innovative business model with great technology, but that's kind of soft for most of the venture capital folks here in Boston. And so I spent the better part of a year pounding on those doors. And frankly, I don't think anybody laughed when I was actually in the room. But when I left and I said, I think someday there's going to be more car sharers than car owners in cities around the world, I think they actually probably laughed at me in hindsight. And then I met somebody on the West Coast. He's from Detroit. His mother had worked at a Buick plant. And he's a venture capitalist, a very famous venture capitalist. He was the first investor in eBay. He heard this story. We did a deal in 30 minutes. And it is a game of numbers. Sales is a game of numbers. There's a funnel and there's an outcome at the bottom every time. And what I realized out of that was, just running into walls was sort of it was a painful process. But once I found the right person that was acceptable or was going to accept the idea, we did a deal in 30 minutes. And he's going to have an amazing outcome because he saw the idea the way I saw it. And we closed the deal very quickly.
Excellent. This is WBSE Business Breakfast Phenomenon, and that is all the hands go up just around 5 minutes of 10, close to our close. So if you have a question, put your hand up. We'll get a microphone there. We have a question right here with a microphone close by, and we'll move over to the left. Yes, sir.
My company, More Local Calls, helps companies sell quickly and easily, and like Jim said earlier, how enjoyable it can be. What I find, though, is a lot of companies, a lot of business owners have this fear of communicating early on in the game. I don't know if it's baggage they take with them from the early days when people are telling them they're nuts. I don't know if it's fear put into them by their accountant, fearing the process of managing the business, the way Mike describes, just taking hold of the reins and moving forward and not worrying about all the weeds. What would you tell a small business owner or an entrepreneur or an idea person how to get past that initial fear of the early days?
Anybody want to try that?
I mean, I don't think you can tell them. I think entrepreneurs are born. I mean, if you're not like a maniac, you're not going to make it. I worked McDonald's, I worked, washed dishes at Brigham's, I worked 80 hours a week outside the company. And we started Newberry with $2,000. I mean, our paid in capital on our balance sheet's $3. They removed the zeros, right? $3,000 of paid in capital. That's it on our books. So if kids today, if you're not willing to work like 80 or 100 hours a week for your idea, just pack it in. And that's something like musicians I know or artists that got to paint or what. It's, I don't think it's a thing where you want to do a whole lot of cheerleading because most ideas fail and you want people that are passionate enough that at least it was worth it for the ride. And I think most people want to be told what to do. Very few people want to take ego risk, and it's a huge ego risk to do startups because you're risking friends and family and their money usually and things like that. So maybe it's not really a very good answer to your question, but I think it's those salmon jumping upstream. If you don't want to run up all those fish ladders, just pack it in and get a job, at the Department of Motor Vehicles issuing driver's licenses or something.
It's a realistic answer. It's the reality of the situation. Do you want to add that, David?
Well, no, it's a trial and error process, and error is one of the.
Exactly. Okay.